Hey, Suzanne. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes, I can. We have Sorja from Ireland and Michael. Yay! Oh my goodness, we've got a very international crowd today. Hi, everyone. Um, I am going to manage the dashboard here, so hopefully it won't get completely out of control. So we can all pitch in and ask Suzanne questions and hear her awesome story. Let's see. Hey, Sean. So Suzanne is from New Zealand, y'all, and we have Sorcha that is in Ireland, and Sean is in Guatemala, right?
Correct.
Sean, can you hear me? Yay! He's in beautiful Antigua. So what a gorgeous, gorgeous crowd. 2 weeks ago, I met the beautiful Suzanne Hall, and we became instant friends. And today I get to ask her some questions and hopefully get your questions as well. I'm hearing this horrible echo. Hopefully it'll stop. Hold on. Okay, let's see. Okay, so of everybody, I've just unmuted Suzanne and I so that we can see each other. And oh my gosh, and we have Chris from Brazil, who's a gorgeous client of mine. I was just on the phone with her, and that's why I was a couple of minutes late. And we have Catherine too from Dallas, here from down the street from me, basically. Love your background. Okay, so with that, I think we have enough people on the line that are curious about getting to know you a little bit better, my dear Suzanne. Can you believe that? I got you a crowd here. Hi, Chris, you can't hear me? See if you can change your settings, because I think can you all type to make sure that you can hear us in the chat box down here? Okay, I'm getting a few thumbs up, so that's awesome. Chris, you may need to log out and log back in. But okay, so I am in a kind of a public space, and people are going to be wowed and shocked when I start talking about all the amazing things that our guest today is up to and where she's been. Because with us today, we have Suzanne Hall right here. Say hi, Suzanne. And it is, what time is it for you there, my dear?
Oh, it's 9 a.m. So yeah, it's the start of the business day, so pretty civilized.
Yay. Okay, good. That's good, because we have, when I do my mastermind, sometimes we have people from, I have Sorcha staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning, so I'm super happy. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Suzanne, I gotta tell you, I've had a lot of good response from people really, really curious about what is this wild dream that you had, and that when it came true, it shocked you. And when I saw your profile picture, I had never met you, but I saw that huge accomplishment, and I was like, wow, what must one do to be able to receive an award from Richard Branson? And the story just got juicier and juicier, and it got even more juicy when I got to meet you, because you're a gem. So even though your award is what impressed us all, is just the surface, is just the beginning. So welcome, and tell us more about you, my dear. Where you're from, what you do, what are you up to these days?
Right, well, I've run my own business since I was 22. So, and I started my own business out of desperation and out of almost a feeling of tragedy. I had a 2-week-old baby to a partner who we didn't love each other, and it was a sort of, it wasn't what I'd planned for my life. So my first business that I was doing, called Living Nature, became a global skincare brand. It was one of the world's first natural skincare products, and ended up being in 14 countries and about a $20 million turnover.
Wow.
But I started that with $8,000 and a 2-week-old baby. And a lot of people have said to me, you're just so lucky. You know, you're so incredibly lucky. And I've always been amused by that, because I do think I'm a lucky person. I think I'm lucky that I notice opportunities, that I dare to do things when everybody around me tells me that it can't be done, or why are you doing that? Who do you think you are that you're doing that? And at one stage with that business, there was one of the large women's magazines in New Zealand, a little bit like, trying to think of an American magazine, but not as good as a Vogue magazine, but not a like gossip magazine, you know, quite a good solid women's magazine. And she came up and interviewed me, and we'd been out collecting plants and things, and so I was wearing, we call them gumboots in New Zealand, and they call them Wellingtons in the UK. I don't know what you call them in the US, but, you know, gardening shoes, galoshes or something, and overalls. And I said to her, look, do you mind if I just need to pop something into the bank? So she was with me, and I dropped something into the bank. I had to deposit some money or something. And as we were walking out, the bank teller said in quite a loud voice, God, imagine someone like her running a cosmetic company. And that editor of that magazine actually wrote that into the article, because you know, creating a company wasn't about, you know, sitting around looking pretty. It was actually all the hard work and all the small steps it took to bring that idea to life. And that ended up being, so everybody said to me, and I had no experience making cosmetics, so I didn't contract it out. I taught myself how to make cosmetics, and I started off in a small garage in my home, and I just did one thing at a time, and lots and lots and lots of mistakes, too many to remember, and lots of really small wins. So, you know, that feeling sometimes when we're doing something big, and to give you an idea about that project, I was awarded the New Zealand Order of Merit from the Queen. Wow. So you can call me Dame, and not that anybody ever does. And I have a medal as well, and a thing signed by the Queen. Won 17 international awards, and at the end I had 120 staff. 98% of them were single mothers. Wow. And we really made a big difference in our community. And I also built a business in a small town. So there was looking at it as we did get to be in Vogue magazine, German Vogue, British Vogue, Wallpaper magazine. So all those little things came about all those big things came about by 1,000 small steps. And that's something I think a lot of people, when they're on their own mission and they're wanting to develop an idea, you've got to find places each day where you can say, what did I do well today? What were my little wins today? And what things did I overcome today? What scared me today? And what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? And it might be, what could I do about it? Or it might be, who could I ask that might help do something about it? So I've done that pretty much every day. I didn't know anything about business, but I taught myself, and I made sure I asked myself questions. That first day when I was sitting on the ground crying, going, my life is crap, what am I going to do? Obviously I really love my baby, but my relationship was terrible, and I didn't have any money. What got me off the floor was saying, okay, what am I going to do about it? What can I do about it? And I think they're really powerful questions to ask yourself. And even now, I'm in my 50s, and I still every day get scared of things, and I still have to ask my question. Okay, Suzanne, I actually have this conversation. So, okay, Suzanne, so what are you going to do about it? What can you do about it? Who can you ask about it if you don't know? So, yeah. So I think the key takeouts from those things are small wins every day, and record them. Keep a note of them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're feeling a bit hopeless, you can look back each day and go, oh, actually, I've had 20 wins so far in the last 2 weeks.
So we've got a couple of comments here in the chat box. Somebody said that you do not look like you're in your 50s. So maybe there's something to your beauty brand at work, right? And then we also have someone else that's totally resonating with your story. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I love that you're talking about doing it afraid, and having fear, and that fear is an important step, or it's just a part of the process, right? Because I think when we're newer entrepreneurs or newer out in the journey of our life, living our bliss, I think fear is a gatekeeper. It's like, it's the people that are not willing to push past that fear gate, then they just stay mediocre. They stay doing the things that they've always done. And in your case, that's not an option because you've never done the other. You've always been in a business of your own and being courageous. So Suzanne, there's something magical about you, and I'll tell you what it is. You have this sort of nonchalant, relaxed approach to life, and it sounds like to business as well. I honestly never saw you stressed. This woman lost her wallet on the way to Costa Rica to Awesomeness Fest. She found herself without a wallet. Imagine traveling 3 days to go to an event and you lose your wallet. And the way that you tell this story, the way that you're like, well, so how do you get to this place where you're really, maybe it's just an external facade, but you really look relaxed about, life.
I think a lot of people say that to me, and internally, quite often I'm in turmoil. So I'm, there's things going on and I'm worried about things. But I really strongly, my whole life, don't sweat the small stuff. I go, again, another dialogue I have with myself is saying, what can I do about this? Have I done everything I can do? And so all my energy. So for example, really realizing when I got on the plane and I had to go Sydney, LA, Dallas, Costa Rica. I'd come from Auckland. So it was only when I sat on the Sydney plane I realized when I went to turn my phone off that it was missing, and they wouldn't let me off the plane. And I said to the air crew, look, I have no money on me. I have no money at all. That's my phone was with it. I need to get off the flight. And they said, well, you can't. So, and so I just sat there and thought, oh, okay, well, I've paid for the thing at the hotel and whatever. What was the city we arrived in?
San Jose, Guanacaste.
San Jose. And I thought, well, so I just need to really, in the other airports, it doesn't matter if I don't have any money, I won't need to eat anything, or, I'm not going to obviously die of starvation, and there'll be water if I need it, and I will have had enough sustenance on the plane. I'll just need money for a taxi from San Jose to the hotel. And, somehow I'm sure I could borrow some from someone, or I'm sure I'll figure something out. And it was a 13-hour flight. And the air crew were coming by and going, are you okay? We don't want you to sit there for 13 hours worrying. I had to pretend to look worried because I wasn't worried. And then, so in that situation, what would 13 hours of worrying about something have done? It wouldn't have helped my brain come up with a solution. So the other thing that I think it's an essential part of being an entrepreneur as well. One of the businesses I had when I started the skincare business was like a pottery business, because we actually made porcelain bottles. So we had a kiln, and so I taught myself how to do slip cast molding, and part of the things we did, or I did to fund it, was I started a little business with my neighbour, and we made plates and cups and hand painted them, and it didn't work out. But anyway, it was some crazy idea to help fund the idea. So I guess sometimes we do other things to fund our dream that aren't our dream. So that's something to have a think about. But so I'd spent all my money on this kiln, and anyway, I had done something incorrectly when I put the temperature gauge in. I had this cone in. That sort of sat like this between three prongs, and when it reached the temperature, this clay thing would bend and the prong would drop down and turn the switch off. Anyway, the kiln took 8 hours to fire, so I would put it on in the late afternoon, it would go through the night, it would cool down, and in the morning we could open the kiln. Well, in the night, and the shed where I did this was maybe 100 metres away from the house, so some distance, and I woke up in the night and I could see the shed glowing like there were UFOs in there, and I was like, oh my God, what's happened? I went to go in and the kiln hadn't switched off, it had just kept going, and it was glowing white hot by this stage. It was so hot I couldn't even go to it to turn it off, so I had to go and turn the power for the whole building off, and it took 3 days to cool down.
Wow.
So there was this anticipation of, oh my God, everything's going to be ruined, the kiln's going to be ruined. So we had days to anticipate disaster. But anyway, when we opened the farm, and I'd done this in partnership with my neighbour, who was this beautiful woman. Anyway, so I opened the kiln, and this is what's happening in my head. Oh dear, the shelves are all melted. How are we going to get more shelves? I wonder how we're going to get this stuff out of the kiln, because it had all melted into a big glassy blob to the side of the kiln, and how are we going to do that? I wonder if the elements are working, and just all those things going through my head. I turned around and Felice, my neighbour, was sobbing on the floor, like utterly, this is a disaster, everything is ruined, I can't stand this. And she ran away back to her house and pretty much stayed under the blankets for 6 weeks. And she never, ever, and this was 30-something years ago, ever did her own business after that. So which one are you, or are you somewhere in the middle? Because what I realised then is our risk profile and our ability to manage failure is a significant part of whether you should be an entrepreneur or not. And if it's not part of who you are, if you really want to be an entrepreneur, how could you develop that as part of your character? Because I don't believe it's easier if you've got that makeup. And I mean, I really am a scientist in a lot of ways, because I see negative experience as data that you can utilize to decide how to stay on your path. Excuse me. And that's something all the way through, because you're going to make lots of mistakes. You're going to have disasters. Sometimes those disasters will be because you did something wrong. Sometimes it'll be because something just happened that you had no control over. And sometimes really unfair things will happen. And that can be really exhausting. Sometimes in starting BeIntent, which is my current absolute love and passion, apart from my grandchildren and my children. My children get upset that I love my grandchildren so much. I said, I love you guys as much as well.
No, you don't.
And they went, no, you don't. And BeIntent's all about how we can help people get more inspired and help them manage their state of mind throughout the day. And I must make a little entrepreneurs category, actually. That'd be a good thing to have ideas and things throughout the day to help you in your entrepreneurial journey. But the first business I started, I had no money, no knowledge. And then when I started my second business, I had quite a few million in the bank. So I had a beautiful home, great relationship. My whole life was, people would look in and go, wow, you're successful, you've got money, you've got this beautiful home. Everything was pretty ideal. So you'd imagine then, and so it was quite interesting being in that position. I actually made some dumb decisions because I didn't feel like I had to be really careful. So in some ways, having, huge resources didn't really help in some ways. So, sometimes I think when we're working with an idea, we think, oh, if I had lots of money, this would be so easy. Actually, sometimes it actually doesn't make any difference. And when you're struggling or having to be really careful with how you use what resource you have and how you're going to get the next lot of resource to manage to get through the next week, you make more careful decisions and more thought out decisions. So yeah, if you're in that place of struggling, we still struggle too. We're doing so many things and projects with what we're doing. We never have enough money each month to cover all of our expenses because we're always in that growing and moving and pushing, and so that we can reach our global goal. So the things that are important to me, which take us back to what Maru originally started about, which is the Richard Branson story, is, and I've met some extraordinary people throughout my life, and most of the time it hasn't been orchestrated. So meeting Richard Branson, how I met him, was not orchestrated. So I had, at the beginning of each year, and I've always done this, so I did this back when I was 22, and I did it before that, I did create a vision board. I think vision boards are really helpful, and people do it in different ways. But I think a thought is one-dimensional, an image or a picture is two-dimensional, and an action is three-dimensional. And I think when you create two-dimensional images of your dreams, then it's a much easier conduit for it to happen three-dimensionally. Yeah. So part of my vision at the beginning of the year was I really want to meet Richard Branson, and I had looked at his organisation, the B-Team, which is really inspiring to look at. It's bteam.org, I think, really worthwhile checking out. Excuse me. And it's a global movement that Richard Branson got some of the world business leaders together and said it has to be about people, the planet, and profit. We've got to change for a sustainable future. We have to do that. And so that was pretty significant. And Dennis Hanley, who's a New Zealand entrepreneur, he has been to Necker Island with Richard Branson. And so I thought he would be a way that I could get introduced to him and introduced to the B-Team. So I did actually try and orchestrate all these things to get to Richard Branson, and none of them worked. And then about two and a half months ago, I get hundreds of emails a day, but there was this email saying we'd been nominated for these awards called the Talent Unleashed, and in the digital business space. And I went back to them and I said, look, thank you for the nomination, and can you tell me who nominated us? And I don't think our business is quite at the stage yet. I know we're doing pretty well, but I don't think, where our turnover or where we're at on our goals is sufficient enough to warrant being in the awards. And they came back and said we'd been nominated by one of our clients in Australia, and that they'd looked at what we do and they thought it was amazing, and they thought we absolutely should be, in the awards. So, and then I looked and realised that Richard Branson was the judge, and he presented the award, and you got to go and have lunch with him. And that Steve Wozniack, co-founder of Apple, was one of the judges, and the CEO for LinkedIn, and also Yat Sui, who's renowned in the gaming space, a Hong Kong company. Excuse me a moment. I have a
Sorry.
paralysed vocal cord, and it has to warm up.
No.
I should have been singing before talking to you guys.
No, that's okay. A little throat chakra action going on. It's okay. Drink a little tea, water there. We're enjoying it. So come on.
Yeah. So yeah, in that vision of that I put on my vision board of Richard Branson and I standing together, talking, I'd like cut my head out and stuck it in a picture with him, like some weird stalker, and then there we were. We had to put an entry in, so we did a 3-minute video, and we just had no time or resource to do it, and that video came together just perfectly. And then I get the call to say, hey, you're in the top 2 finalists for digital business, and they flew me over to Sydney for the awards, and they flew the European people over for the awards as well. So that's how I got to meet Richard Branson. And his book, Screw It, Just Do It, is really worth reading. He's dyslexic, so it's written at a 12-year-old reading level, and it's a 2-hour read, and there's some absolute gems in there. And he's incredibly hardworking, and he's got a very strong family ethic and personal ethic. So even though he's the party guy, he's not really. He's sort of like the essence, I guess, of the Awesomeness Festival. It's that, how do you combine play, passion, business, connection all together and make it everything feel like play or feel really meaningful and really connected. So that's how I got to meet Richard Branson. And
was it everything you expected it to be?
Actually, it was more. I mean, I received the invitation that said an intimate dinner with Richard Branson, so I thought it was just going to be him and I, but there were a few other people there. And so we didn't get huge amounts. Probably, I mean, we sat and talked for about 15 minutes, and which was a lot of his time for who else in the room.
Right.
And he had people waiting out the door for him, and yeah, it was. And so that 15 minutes was really significant, and I didn't really tell him so much about what we were doing, but I was really interested in asking him, and I just read that book, you know, Screw It, Just Do It. So I wanted to find out sort of how he sustains that energy that he puts into things, and how he feels when he makes mistakes. And it actually was a bit hard to nail down too. You know, I was pretty excited to be getting his feedback, and he's pretty funny. He's a very present speaker, and you know, whoever he's talking to, he's very present to them. So, I mean, he just said the same thing he said that he'd said in his books. He said, Suzanne, I just do what I'm passionate about, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And I've just got better at understanding what's going to work out. But even being older, I sometimes don't know how something's going to work out. And if I have a really strong gut instinct about it, I go ahead anyway, but I actually do a hell of a lot of research. Like, people think things just happen. They don't. They happen by a whole lot of hard work and a whole lot of research, and continually measuring that against your gut instinct. So you might do research and there's 10 authorities saying you do something this way, and you really strongly feel like you should do it another way. Well, then go and research who's done it your way and see if it's worked. You might not be able to, or you might be able to interview some people. And if you can't find anyone who's done it your way, try it anyway, because it could be a new way to do it. Don't just do it just because, but be aware of how other people have succeeded in your space, even if you're going to do it a different way. Still take the time to understand that. And I think that's quite good advice that I've probably not taken myself over the years. But yeah, I think it's good. The other thing that I think has been significant for me, which just came to mind, this wasn't something Richard Branson said, but it came across a lot at Awesomeness Fest. Get a mentor. I mean, you guys are obviously doing something like that, but get a mentor, because you just learn so many things. And I always had this feeling that you were somehow cheating if you had a mentor or you asked someone. I have no idea where that stupid idea came from. But yeah, it's this. I mean, I help people all the time, and I do it, and I love to do it. So I'm sure in whatever field you're in, that there'll be people out there who would be happy to give advice, or might just send you in the right direction, or recommend a book, or recommend something.
Sure. So, Suzanne, we actually have a couple of questions, and I want to welcome Adrian, who is changing the world as well. And I didn't say this at the beginning, everyone, but I met Suzanne at Awesomeness Fest, and actually Neelam, who's also on video, were part of Awesomeness Fest. And Adrian's going to be joining us in Greece, I'm sure. So, Neelam, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? You posted it here, but you might as well ask it. You can go ahead and talk. You're unmuted.
I'm at work and you can hear me.
Oh, okay, got it. So she, yes. So Neelam was asking, at what point, Suzanne, do you know if it's fear versus throwing in the towel?
That's a really good question. Yeah, let me think about that. I ask myself that question sometimes too, is like, am I just being bloody minded and carrying on with something that other people, and I do think you then revisit your core reason for doing things, and depending if it's something that needs to have a commercial success to it, like it's something you're generating to so you can eat and live, then it's pretty important to say, how valid is this? And it also might depend on the type of product it is as well, because quite often people create a business around something that they want to do, but they haven't checked that anybody else wants what they want to do. So, you could be an artist and nobody likes your paintings, but you want to keep painting because that's what fulfills you. So you should keep painting and find some other. Or, for instance, with BeIntent, it was really ahead of its time. And so we had the global financial crisis. And so I had lots of people, and I used all the money I had. So I went from having millions in the bank, using it all to build this business. I then sold my house. And so I went from having a beautiful house, a few million in the bank, to having no house, renting a house, and everybody, my children are grown up, going, you're just mad. Everybody who'd been involved in my last business were just like, this is not a valid idea. And I just knew, despite every single person in my life telling me I shouldn't be doing it, that this was right. And I was scared as can be, utterly scared. Excuse me. And so it's have I validated that this is a product in the market that somebody wants? How could I validate that again to lessen this fear? Do I carry on? How else can I fund it? What else is happening in this space? Sometimes if someone else is trying to do the same thing as well, it's a way to validate what you're doing and that you need to stick to it. Sometimes it's like, actually, they're going to get there better and faster than me, so what else could I do, or what could I develop this idea into that has its own point of difference? So I think it's quite hard to tell sometimes, actually, should I just give up because, I'm that saying I'm flogging a dead horse. This is never going to work. Or, and I've never felt like that about my ideas. Firstly, because I don't have an idea that I want to do. For instance, with Living Nature, the skincare business, I didn't want to make skincare. I didn't have a dream that I was going to have a cosmetic company and I was going to make skincare. I created a business from desperation and going, what skills do I have and what is needed in the world and what am I passionate about? And the idea to make skincare came from that. And then I didn't go, right, I'm just going to make skincare. I went, okay, so is anyone else making skincare from New Zealand plants? All the skincare on the market, and this was, 35 years ago, there wasn't any natural brands then. It's hard to imagine with you guys a lot younger, but so again, everybody said to me, what do you mean natural? Nobody even cared about natural unless you were into, people weren't really into organics then either. So it was quite a different world to now. So there wasn't any competition. And I just thought I could see a gap in the market. So one of the things around creating a business idea is being really clear right from the beginning that somebody wants to buy your services or your product and there's a need for it. So that helps propel you. And what's your motivation behind doing something? We see it a lot with people who open restaurants. They want to have a cafe. They want to have a cafe because they want to have a cafe. They might not know how to run a business. There already might be 10 cafes in their area. And so something you want to do just because you think it's cool, I think gets people into trouble sometimes. They haven't really done the research first to determine, okay, well, I want to be of service to people. I love serving people. I love nourishing people. So I'm going to create a cafe. Instead of going, well, actually a food truck would be a better idea, or maybe I'll create an online business, or what is needed. So homework, I think, is really important to help you determine if you have a valid idea and whether you should continue with it or overcome those fears and carry on with it. Hopefully
Awesome.
That's a long-winded way to answer your question.
No, there's some brilliant nuggets there. Thank you so much. We have a couple of questions on the line, but I did want to address, how has your life and business changed since winning the award?
Well, that only happened 6 weeks ago.
I know.
So and I'll share this with you. It scared me. It scared me because suddenly, and Richard Branson, Steve Wozniack, and the 4 judges gave us incredible quotes, and we're allowed to use them wherever we want on our website and everywhere. So suddenly, in the digital space, we've won a global award, and we've got people, right at the top of the game validating what we're doing. And I'm madly going, how do I maximize this? How do I use this to propel the business faster? And I'm figuring that out. I don't know the answers to that. And and then, went to Awesomeness Fest, that was only 2 weeks after that. So I've come back with lots of energy and a whole lot of questions and that I don't know the answers to yet. So the thing that's changed is I've put my hand up and said, hey, I really need help with figuring out how to maximize that, because we've gone from only a few weeks before that. Actually, this year's been pretty good. It's been pretty good at getting people understanding our concept. Can
you explain that to us, the BeIntent concept? Because it's incredible. See, the LinkedIn wants to have conversations with you about it.
Yeah. So actually, and that's great that it's changed our conversations with customers, and it's moved us where we're in conversation. It's moved the conversation much faster than it will be. So did you say you want me to talk about the concept?
Yeah, can you explain what BeIntent is?
Okay, so it's hard to explain. So it's a new piece of technology that for the individual helps them in both mental, physical, and emotional health by asking you at the beginning of the day. It's built on the principles of positive psychology and neuroscience. So at the beginning of the day, it asks you how you feel and how you need to feel. And then there's a gratitude component. So it'll ask you 3 things you're grateful for. You choose images to go with those words, and it creates a gratitude wall. It's got inbuilt goal setting, journaling, and a whole lot of other tools in there to help you until you choose from how the state of mind you chose. You will get delivered within the tool beautiful little images, or it might be something like telling you to get over yourself and get on with it. It could be a really beautiful, supportive thing, because you might say, hey, I'm feeling lazy and I need to feel focused. But using creativity and things to give you small pieces of what we call intents to help you be intent. And then underneath that is a platform where everybody's individual inputs are all encrypted, so nobody can see anything. But if you're in a team, you can see how the team's feeling. And it asks you to rate your day at the end of the day, your energy, your enthusiasm. There's different polls that come through, so you can build up a picture of how your health and energy levels are changing over time. And there's about 140 topics in there you can choose from. So you might say, my back's a bit sore today, my teenage children have been a pain, and I need to really sort out how to use punctuation. And you could fit those things and they would all get delivered to you in the tool. It's a web app, so you can use it, and there's a desktop app and there's a phone app that all synchronize together. So the idea is, how do you get more out of your day, your life, and your work? And we're always adding new material to it. So, something I said earlier, I should create an entrepreneurs category so that you're getting fed things throughout the day to help you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Because it's a different ballpark when you're in a team. You're not. You're it. So I think it's definitely a whole different ballpark to explore. And it does sound complicated, but can you imagine, y'all, if you're ever in a corporate setting, or if you still are, if you had an app that the company endorses that is ascertaining how you're feeling throughout the day, and it's logging that information and it's helping to play to that. Because that's how it works, right? Like the teams get feedback, and then they can do all kinds of things to help the energy of the group and to help you stay motivated and engaged. I don't know how you did it. It sounds complicated, but it sounds incredible.
Well, it feels very simple to use, but getting people to understand in organizations that how people feel makes a significant difference to how productive and happy they are, and those impact on how people feel about their job.
Right.
It's taken a few years to get that.
Oh my gosh. And to get companies to adopt that, that's incredible. So I'm so glad you now have probably one of the...
For us, the other thing we had to look at pricing. So we changed the pricing this year. So we do that for $12 a person per year. Wow. And in US dollars, it's about $10. So an organization, and there's a bullying pulse in there and a whole lot of things around bullying, which is pretty important in the workplace. And so an organization has a daily pulse on how people are feeling, a bullying pulse. There's
that's amazing.
Workbooks and things to help with bullying in the workplace. And so we wanted to make it really accessible. So an organization can deliver to one of their staff for basically $10 a year, a whole wellness program. And so we're really starting to get traction now. So that's something to consider with what you're doing. So we, previously to that, we were $180 a year. And so we changed our pricing model because of what was happening in the app space, even though we're delivering a lot more value than any other apps in the space. And so suddenly we've got all this business happening, but our price has, so in terms of users, we're going like this, but in terms of our income, we went like that. Because you know, we had to sell 20 times more to get the same income. And so that's been a decision we made, and you know, one of those, I'm not sure if it was the right decision. I mean I did a lot of research around it, and I think it was the right decision, but you know, it gets hard when you're just starting to be profitable and then you change your pricing structure and you're not profitable anymore until you build up more than 20 times the business.
Oh my God.
Working. So sometimes that's another thing about, do we give up or are we fearful? Is like, actually, so what could be a roadblock to a customer taking on our product? It used to be they didn't understand what mindfulness was. And then it was looking at, you know, is budget one of those? And we looked at, you know, how could we, for, you know, a company with 100 staff, how could they have this for less than $5,000 and make an easy decision that doesn't have to go to the board? So considering some of those things is quite important. Anyway, let's move on.
Well, and Billiana had a couple of really great questions. Well, Adrian said, it shows the company actually cares, which is fairly non-existing in corporate. True. Question for Suzanne: what is the greatest advice that you were ever given and that you can share with us? Or that you remember right now?
One of the things that happened when I was younger is I was given lots of great advice, but I didn't understand the advice. So, you know, and I think that's sometimes something that mentors do, or people say, and I know I do it to people, you know, I'll give them a really good piece of advice, but they're not at the stage of learning and understanding in their business to know what it means. So I so wish that I could have contained some of that earlier advice, and, you know, so that's something I really recommend. If someone gives you advice and you don't quite think it's, maybe write it down, and then you can reflect on it sometime in the future, because you know, I haven't got one piece of advice. I mean, I haven't. I think all of the advice and the wisdom I've had would be from reading. It doesn't mean I haven't been given advice, but it just doesn't come to mind. Has been from reading voraciously other entrepreneurs' books, doing courses. You know, a really big influence on me when I was young was Tony Robbins stuff. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff around, and I get a bit angry now when, you know, because we're part of our board and everything is people who are organizational psychologists and academics, and we need those to, you know, be credible. And, you know, they give him crap, you know. And I think actually, you know, there's so many people in the entrepreneurial space that the sort of things that people like Tony Robbins, and it's about taking emotional responsibility for yourself, creating a massive action plan, having an evaluation process to that massive action plan, and actually getting out and doing something every day. And I think the best advice and the most inspiration and encouragement I've had would be from Richard Branson's, it's an old book of his, that Screw It, Let's Do It book. It was just, I don't know, it really reinvigorated me about all of the things that were meaningful to me. So, but I look every day constantly for inspiration and advice. So
Is that was another question.
Day that goes past that there wasn't 10 gems or something. I'm always listening and looking for that.
And that was another question that Billiana had. Do you have daily practices that help you stay on track, or that help you stay grounded and stress-free?
And using BeIntent is designed around that. So I created the tool sort of for myself, because one of the world leaders in natural health and well-being, and you know, I know a huge amount about it, and it's a passion of mine. And I've meditated, and you know, I was brought up in a Christian family, and I used to sneak out of the window to go to yoga classes because we weren't allowed to do things like yoga. So there's some funny stories around that, but I was like a little punk rocker yoga girl. And so the idea of meditation and visualizing is really, really important, and different people have different ways of meditating. So I definitely have a daily practice of meditating, and you know, I don't get fussy about it. Like sometimes I'll be feeling tired and I will listen to a meditation while I'm lying in bed because that's the only way I'm going to do it. Other days, like this morning, I was up at 5:30 and went and sat on rocks at the beach. And actually, we had an A-Fest. 3 of us went last night and did a ritual on the beach, and I got Paula collecting firewood with me. We live right in the central city, and so Paula had never done anything like collect firewood, and because I said we've got to have a fire, and there's a fire ban, and Travis came, and
wow.
And so I went back to that place this morning because we'd created a really nice. So yeah, I have a lot of my own spiritual practices that are, you know, and I love people who mash whatever together, whatever inspires them. But I think it's important to take time in the day to give thanks, and you know, and it'll be, you know, part of that is the gratitude habit. And from a neuroscience perspective, we've done huge amounts of work in that, and we see what happens to the brain when you either meditate or you have a gratitude habit. So BeIntent's all about taking a moment in time. How am I feeling? What do I need to be today? What am I grateful for? And then, so we looked at the fact that people won't take time out every hour. And you know, as I was saying, I've got all this knowledge, and I would sit at my computer, I'd have some fruit and some water, and I could get immersed in doing something. I could be 3.5 hours and I hadn't even got up and gone to the loo, or, you know, eaten any healthy food. And, you know, so what I realized is often we have knowledge, but how do we act on that knowledge and bring it front of mind? And that's what BeIntent is about. So that's a big part of my daily practice now. At the end of the day, rating my day, how was my energy, how was my enthusiasm, what was my productivity like, not based on anyone else's evaluation, my own. And then what's one thing I did well today, and what's one thing I'm going to do better tomorrow. And then
beautiful. Do you get reports also?
Yeah. So you have your own dashboard so you can see what's happened.
That's amazing. Well, I will make sure I'm going to talk to Miss Suzanne Hall and see how we can make sure that all of you get exposed to the app, learn more about it, and maybe, you know, hopefully download it too. Because I would love to spread this message. I think it's needed, especially for us entrepreneurs that, you know, we live in this roller coaster world where we do everything. We have to be our own accountability most of the time. And anyway, in the interest of people's times, I'm just looking at the time now. I think it's time to wrap it up.
One more piece of advice, because I've been thinking from the question of what was the best piece of advice, and I was thinking, why can't I think of one? And this is it. And I can't remember who told me, but they said to me, whoever it was said to me, you know, Suzanne, you're so fantastic at giving advice. When you need advice, why don't you just ask yourself what you would tell someone in the same situation? What advice would you give to someone in your situation? And I think quite often as entrepreneurs and people, we know what we need to hear. And so that wisdom is inside. So,
Yeah, I love that reframe. So I'm glad that it came through. And Sean saying, I love the app as a tool to monitor yourself. I personally am integrated in Qigong, Ayurveda, neuroscience, and NLP/hypnosis.
Oh, wow.
What a hodgepodge. Wow, it sounds like, Sean, it sounds like you could be a great beta tester for BeIntent. Well, Suzanne, you have helped me gather people from all over the world. Guatemala, Ireland, the States, New York, California, Texas, Florida. Let's see who else. Yeah. We have a lot of people that came through, several people that registered to get the recording and to hear from you, all these incredible experiences. And thank you for being a serial entrepreneur, for always working for yourself, because you've definitely made the world a better place. And I pray that you continue to have the stamina, that the right contacts, the right investors, clients, all the right people continue to line up in your path, because you're definitely on a mission, and a great one indeed. So I'm saying,
well, thank you,
Mara. Saying thank you.
And thank you. And fantastic to see all of your faces, and thank you for coming and sharing this time with us.
Absolutely. And congratulations to you. And we're all going to check out BeIntent now, right?
Right. Fantastic.
Okay, so I'm going to unmute everybody if you want to say bye. There you go. You're all unmuted.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
Adrian, I'll connect you to Suzanne. Maybe you guys can talk too, since we do so many amazing things. Okay, guys, have a good one. I'm going to stop recording.